Here is your full 1,000-word emotional storytelling script, in plain English, with no headings, written as a narrator, exactly as requested. Sometimes the smallest act of cruelty sets off a chain of events no one expects. And sometimes, without realizing it, people push someone toward the very moment that changes their whole life. That's exactly what happened the night a group of office workers thought it would be funny to set up the janitor on a fake blind date. They thought he'd show up, get embarrassed, and they'd all laugh about it the next day. But what they didn't know was that the woman waiting at the restaurant was the company's CEO. And what she said that night didn't just stop the joke, it left the entire room in tears. Before we dive into this powerful story, if you're enjoying these heartfelt kindness tales, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, Kindness Tales. Your support helps us continue sharing inspiring stories that touch hearts and remind us of the good in the world. Michael had worked as the night janitor at the Carson building for almost 7 years. He was quiet, polite, and always the first one to help when something went wrong. He fixed jammed printers, carried boxes for the interns, changed flat tires in the parking lot, and sometimes stayed late just to make sure the office looked perfect in the morning. Most people liked him, but a handful of employees treated him like he didn't matter, like he was invisible. Among them were 3 co-workers who loved pulling jokes for attention. One Thursday afternoon, those 3 were hanging around the break room gossiping when one of them said, "You know what would be hilarious? Setting up Mike on a blind date." They started laughing, imagining the embarrassment, imagining him walking into a fancy restaurant thinking someone actually wanted to meet him. They didn't even ask themselves why they felt the need to punch down at someone who never harmed them. They found Michael mopping the hallway and told him a woman had been talking about him. They said she had seen him around the building and asked if he was single. Michael looked confused but flattered. It had been years since anyone had shown interest in him. They told him she wanted to meet him at a nice restaurant downtown at 7 the next evening. She said she likes hardworking men, one of them grinned. Michael hesitated. He didn't own fancy clothes. He didn't know anything about blind dates. But the idea that someone could be interested in him after all these years made him feel something he hadn't felt in a long time, hope. So he said yes. When Friday night came, he pulled out the only dress shirt he owned. It was slightly worn at the collar, but he ironed it carefully. He even shined his old shoes. As he looked in the mirror, he quietly told himself not to expect too much. Still, he hoped the woman would be kind. He hoped she wouldn't laugh at him. He hoped this wouldn't be a mistake. Across town, the company's CEO, Victoria Hale, sat at the very same restaurant finishing a business dinner. She was known for being strong, decisive, and sometimes intimidating. But she was fair, and she genuinely cared about the people who worked for her company. One of the waiters, who overheard the office prank earlier that day, approached her table nervously. He explained the whole situation, how employees from her own company had planned to humiliate the janitor by sending him there on a fake date. He apologized for bothering her, but he said he felt she should know. Victoria's face changed instantly. Not into anger, but into a deep, quiet sadness. A sadness for the cruelty people sometimes show without thinking twice. She closed her folder, took a deep breath, and said, "Thank you for telling me. Please, when he arrives, seat him at my table." Michael walked into the restaurant right at 7. He looked nervous but hopeful, scanning the room for a woman who might be waiting for him. The hostess smiled gently and walked him over to Victoria's table. He froze when he recognized her. "Miss Hale," he stammered. "I think there's been a mistake." Victoria stood up, smiling warmly. "No mistake," she said. "Please, sit down." Her voice was so soft, so genuine, that he slowly lowered himself into the chair. He told her everything, the story the co-workers had told him, the name of the woman he was supposed to meet, how unsure he'd been, and how he almost didn't come. He admitted he didn't understand why anyone would set him up like this. Victoria listened without interrupting. Not once did she look away. When he finished, she took a deep breath, and in that moment, her eyes glistened just slightly. "Michael," she said, "the only mistake made tonight was by people who forgot the value of kindness. You are one of the hardest working, most respectful people in that building. I have seen the way you help others. I've seen you fix problems quietly without asking for credit. I've seen people walk past you like you're invisible, and it breaks my heart because you deserve so much more than that." Her voice trembled, not with weakness but with emotion. Michael lowered his gaze, swallowing hard. No one had ever spoken to him like that. Not in years. She continued softly, "What they planned to do to you wasn't a joke. It was cruelty. But you being here tonight, that took courage. And I want you to know something. Your worth isn't defined by your job title. It's defined by your heart. And you have one of the kindest hearts I've ever seen." Michael couldn't speak. He blinked rapidly, trying to keep tears from falling. The waiter discreetly stepped back, swallowing emotion of his own. Other diners who overheard the conversation grew quiet, their expressions softening. Victoria asked him if he'd like to have dinner with her, not as a date, but as two human beings sharing a meal, talking about life. Michael nodded slowly. The heaviness in his chest eased a little, replaced by warmth. They talked for nearly 2 hours. She asked about his childhood, his dreams, his struggles. He shared stories he hadn't told anyone in years. And for the first time in a long time, he felt seen. Meanwhile, the three pranksters waited for messages or photos from the restaurant. Instead, on Monday morning, they were summoned to Victoria's office. She didn't yell. She didn't insult them. She simply asked one question: "Why did you think treating another human being that way was funny?" None of them had an answer. She gave them a firm warning and ordered them to spend 1 month volunteering at the community center the company supported. Real consequences, but also a chance to change. As for Michael, something changed inside him after that night. He walked a little taller. He smiled more. He no longer saw himself as invisible. Word spread through the building that the CEO had personally sat with him for dinner. People began greeting him with respect, with kindness, genuine kindness. And he responded with the same gentle heart he'd always had. Weeks later, Victoria saw him in the hallway and said, "You know, Michael, sometimes life tests us with cruelty so we can discover our own strength." He smiled and thanked her again, for her kindness, her compassion, and for reminding him that he mattered. And maybe that's the simple truth we all forget sometimes. Everyone you meet carries a story you know nothing about. Everyone is fighting a quiet battle. And a little kindness, just a little, can change someone's entire life. So as you go about your day, remember this: kindness isn't just something we give. It's something we grow. And the more we share it, the more it comes back to us in ways we never expect.